want color. And I like to do color to match the shirt. More pumping. More pumping. I like to do color to match the shirt of the horse, of the rider, but also I like specific colors in horses. Like I love purple and burgundy and dark green in a chestnut. I think dark purple looks spectacular in a dark bay or a black mane. Grays, I think, look best in soft pink as long as they have like a light colored mane. I think the pink goes with gray better than anything else. You always want to keep kind of a tension on the braid like you're pulling it right into your belly. There's a straight line from here to here, and you're just working that right along that line to here. You want a snugness on it, like you're rolling it down, okay? Keep your hands close to your neck, close to your work. See, I'll put stress on that hair. I'll pull it out like that to help me make a nice straight cut. Okay, it's not quite straight. Make it nice and straight so that when you look, see, these are still a little crooked. You want them as straight as possible. That helps with presentation. If you're doing line classes, if you're modeling, if you're doing conformation classes on a horse, which you expect to stand up and say, I am the prettiest in the ring, you better have the straightest braids to make that neck look gorgeous. If you send a conformation horse into the ring with poor braids, you can bet bad score. They say that the judges don't look, but that's not true. Judges look. They want to be presented to. That's about the best way I know how to put it. Like, here you go, Your Majesty. This is the best I have, best I can do. Best in show, you know? It takes the right mentality, I think. Helps to be a little ADHD, I think, maybe. To do the same thing over and over and over again and still not get bored with it. There has to be something different about it every time you go to braid a horse or braid its mane. You want to try to achieve a rhythm like that, like the last one I just braided. But you can see, every single time I make a braid, I sequence exactly the same on how to form a braid. See how my braids are starting to even out almost perfectly? These are a little bit rough, you can see. But now these have almost identical amounts of hair in each one. The twists are lining up. Everything's lining up exactly. And that's what I'm talking about when I say presentation. These don't match this one, but they're far enough away where it's not really going to affect it. And this sort of is going to move a lot anyways. So by the time you're getting past your first 4 or 5 braids, you really have better established a good line and made your braids look perfect, because from here down, you're really going to be looked at. I like to keep the neck damp, which means you moisten it often instead of a lot at once, because I don't like the soaking wet braids when I'm braiding. I'll do a lot of that. Make sure that there's no tangles in the hair. The hair is smooth and flows. Do my fingers. If I feel knots in it as I'm braiding it, I'm going to catch those knots because I'm going to go fast, and those just a little bit of a knot will slow me down. Otherwise, I can go pretty quick. And that's just hand technique. It's not strength. It's just my ability. Anybody can do it. You just got to practice the rhythm. That makes braiding go so much faster, which means you're taxing your horse a lot less for its time. So you have more time to rub on your horse's ears. And you're not, when you do that first twist, you are not putting your foot on the neck and yanking the braids tight. All you have to do is start turning them together. nice and snug, and keep it nice and snug all the way down. The more you do this, when you snap a knot, you know it's tight. The longer you do this, the better it's going to look. The faster you go, the better it's going to look. You can always go back and fix a knot if you don't like it. I've already left one. I'm going to go back in a bit. But I want you to be able to see how consistently the braids need to flow out of your hands. You want absolute perfect technique and form. When you do this, this is not about strength. My hands aren't strong enough. Well, you can condition your hands. Hands can condition too. But it does bother people's hands if they don't take care of it. So that advice comes later. Just keep at it. This is a tedious job, but I love it. Okay. You want to try to stay as relaxed as you can in your back. It's hard to stand on the ladder, believe me. With very little mobility, your back tends to get very sore. So I try to stand on one leg and I'll work my hips back and forth a little bit, and then the other. Because I don't want to compress one side more than the other. I'll keep my knees bent a little bit. Try to show the back of my leg just so that you see that I don't lock my knees out like this. I always try to keep them soft. Okay, that's enough. Just so that, you know, you can wiggle your hips, relax your back, take soft, easy breaths. If you arch your back too much when you're doing this, you really start to chest breathe. And that makes you stress around your neck and shoulders. So this is kind of how you want your horse to accept this. With his head down and relax. Now you're seeing a much better line on that horse start to emerge. It takes a while. And as long as you make it fun for Mr. Horse, he doesn't mind giving you the time. He just doesn't want it to take all day. It feels about right. I'm making a good sized braid. Not huge, but it's not tiny. I should end up with over 35, maybe close to 40 with a neck like this. Let's go over putting yarn in again. Grab it, even it up, right in between. Turn it down once, twice, 3 times. This side rolls right out. This side goes under and in between. Even it up, flip it over. Pull it through, snug it down. Beginners, tight, tight. Make sure that you have a nice tail. See how nice and easy that those ends are going to be? There's no stumps. There's no blunt ends to it. There's also a trick. It's taking the braids out so that they never get like that. And that's, don't use a seam ripper. Once you cut the braid face, these ends come out with a latch hook. And if you put your own braids in and you take your own braids out, you can make your mane the way you want it. Never worry about it again. This knot will come out if you pull it out. Say you don't like the length of one of the braids. And you say, oh man, that one's way too short. You can just take your latch hook, grab it right at your yarn. Oh my gosh, look, it comes out. Don't think your braids are going to fall out unless you take it out like that. See, then you can just go back and put yarn in instead of having to go back up to here to put yarn in. Now don't get me wrong. Sometimes people get a little aggressive when they're taking these braids out, or they're silly and they do it in the dark and they chop up here. And then you get a bunch of flyaways and you get a bunch of hair sticking out the middle of the braid. So you know someone hacked on the hair. And sometimes you have to fill in that hole with yarn, and there's no choice in the matter. Otherwise, the braid will twist away, and then you'll end up with 2 pieces instead of 3, which is what ends up happening. Hand technique. Slide it down, pinch it snug, tight, thumb on the braid at all times. Turn it down, reach under, grab it, turn it down. Reach under, grab it, turn it down. Reach under, grab it, turn it down. That's as much, exactly the same on both sides. Exactly the same on both sides. So that you create all the braids looking exactly the same. Okay? Now that one's too short. See how way short that is? Right back in. And see, you're only making it 3 twists longer, but that's only 1/8 of an inch. That 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch, will make a difference when it's folded in half. It'll make a big difference, because it is 1/4 of an inch, at least from that point to that point. I had my yarn in there before. You can see it in the light. I had my yarn in that twist before, and that's at least 1/4 of an inch. That's almost 1/2 of an inch. So that's going to make a big difference on that one braid. If everything else is even, and then it's up 1/4 of an inch, and then back down. Okay? So when you start to count movements, how many movements does it take to make a braid? All right, 1, 2, 3. Until I start braiding, I'll just 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, snug, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I mean, there's so many movements. It's silly to try to count because you lose count. You don't even know where you are. There's so many to do. People think, oh, braiding's so easy. No. Start to count up the movements that you make that you have to do identically, perfectly, to be able to get a decent looking braid. Okay, there's over 1,000 movements in braiding down, way over 1,000 movements. When you count every single thing that you do, like this is a movement, that's a movement, this is a movement, that's a movement. I'm not talking about, okay, I move my little finger. Where you have to move your hand position, stay under tension, the consistent tension. Doing it all in a way your horse can appreciate. Now here in the middle of the neck, I'm also making a slightly stockier braid than I did right up here. Slightly stockier, not much. It's, maybe 50 hairs more. It just feels a little bit more. You can gradually let it get thicker.